Hi guys, welcome back to Irish Footy Vlogs. Welcome back to another Premier Division prediction show. My voice isn't the best today, as you can probably hear, but we'll kick on, JP. JP won last week in the prediction league by 5 points to two. I lead by 125 points to 121 overall. 4 points in it. He's pegged me back here. You got a correct score, 3 pointer, JP. The Shamrock Rovers defeat against Pauk. You also got correct results, which are 1 points between Sligo Rovers and Waterford. Bows and Shamrock Rovers. I also picked up a point in both of those games, respectively, as well. Two games this week, JP, but there's a lot on the line, really, in both games, particularly from Dundalk and Shelbourne's point of view at the bottom and top of the table. And Oriel Park, obviously, on Thursday. Dundalk will take on St. Patrick's Athletic, which is the rescheduled game. But no, it's a massive game for them, in fairness. It's their game in hand. They're a point behind Drogheda in the table. They battled well against Shelbourne last time out, lacked punch. They'll want to bring some of that intensity into the game. Obviously, more for the full game here. It gets a Pat side who played very well, I have to say, the other day at Richmond Park against Dundalk. Interesting game, and there is a lot on the line for Dundalk here, isn't there?
Yeah, as I say, like they that's defeat the Shelbourne last week. They lost it in a really, really bad way. So they did. But with the goalkeeper error.
They've had four different goalkeepers this season, JP. It's never a good
It,
thing, is it?
it, it's not good. No.
No.
Um, and the way that they conceded that goal as well, like they'd be really disappointed. If they lost 2-0 or 2-1, where there's another goal involved, but they lose it like that would have been really, really tough, and so early in the game as well, and they're up against it. And it's not going to get any easier against St. Pat's because Stephen Kenny has said his players a challenge now because they're only 8 points off European places, and having put in some good performances in Europe, he's challenged his team. They replicated it domestically, and they see what they can do over the finals weeks of the season and see if they can nab that European spot. As
Mm.
we know, it's probably going to likely be, well, I say likely, but it's with Derry and Shelbourne playing one another in the quarterfinals. It's not making it any easier for teams to try and get a European spot because they're probably going to have to finish third. They definitely guarantee it. Where before you're finishing fourth and then knowing you were in Europe because the cup finalists um were probably both within the top three. So yeah, it's very, very interesting. Drogheda have no game this week, don't they not? So a chance for Dundalk to get themselves off the bottom. For St. Pat's, a chance they close the gap on the top three, four. But when you look at the table, they're only 4 points behind Shamrock Rovers when they play this fixture. I say it's a game in hand for them. On the teams above them, as is when I say above them, I mean Sligo, Galway, Waterford. A chance they close within them teams um that are sitting in the third place. And look, with Stephen Kenny now a few months on and into the hot seat, he got them playing well in Europe. It's whether you can now get them the same appetite domestically, but he'll be really up for this game, so they will at Oriel Park. As we know, he's had a lot of success there, plenty of European success.
His first
Uh,
return as manager as well, so yeah.
yeah, so it'll be interesting. Look, I'm sure he'll get a very, very good reception. Um, but the Dundalk fans they'll want to make it hostile for his team, and they'll be hoping that he leaves empty-handed.
Of course, John Daly as well being the other dugout as well. And they've already met, of course, at Richmond Park when that was a mad game. Dundalk won by 3 goals to lose, 3-2 at half time. And Dundalk were two up after 3 minutes or something. It was insane. Like, it was one of the early Kenny games as well. But I don't see that happening again, to be fair, either way. But interesting news about Brian's Ainscough coming out there. He's only at the club a year, the owner of the club for a year after leaving Kerry FC after a season. And there's talk that, he's open to offers to move on potentially at the end of the season, JP. Is that somebody who's looking to jump off before the ship sinks, or maybe if the ship does sink, he's not going down with that ship, basically. Is that the way you see it, pretty much?
Yeah, I think so. When you look at the way he left Kerry on the eve of the season, he saw a big opportunity, probably bigger than what he anticipated it was going to be. Um, uh, it's I don't think he's attracted the investment that he thought he could attract. I think he knew that he was going in there. He was going to need a wee bit of support.
Mm.
Um, and he just hasn't been able to attract it. And I think now he's realizing that if they go down, he probably doesn't even have the budget to be able to get them back up.
I did
Um,
hear last week, I won't say where, heard of JP, but interestingly, that if they go down, there was a chance that it would good chance they would go back to part time. This
mm,
news suggests that that could be the case, and I don't think he'd have an interest in going down to the
no,
first division with them as part time. It wouldn't be in his personal interest, I would suggest.
no, I did hear that there was potentially that the start of this season they were going to go part time, wasn't there?
There was a bit of
Um,
chitter chatter about it, wasn't there? I do know that most of the players though took a wage cut. That's one of the
yeah,
first things he did
which
when he
is
went in. And obviously Hooban didn't, but we won't get into all that kind of stuff really. Like, be here all night. Like,
I think Hoban had probably been he'd probably been gone in his head anyway before
mm,
that. So um, but I think in the summer they gave Darrell Horgan a new contract and he
mm,
signed it.
mm,
Which yeah, he's probably trying to show a bit of loyalty to the club that got him his raise to where he got to. He got the international caps and stuff like that there. So he's probably trying to show a bit of loyalty to the Dundalk. And like who knows if they do go down and go part time, Darrell might stick around. Like, but um as I say, I have to agree with you. It's kind of he's the captain and he's not going down with that ship. And when I say that, I mean Brian Ainscough.
mm,
He's not going down with the ship that
mm,
if it sinks, he's going to get off before it goes.
mm,
Um, but I do think it was probably from the outside looking in from his point of view, it probably looked easier than what it did when he got in there and he's realized how
mm,
tough it actually is. And like I'm sure that the guys that took it back off peak six, they didn't hand it. They didn't want the sale, but they knew they had it. Because they didn't have the finances to be able to
mm,
keep up with the likes of Derry and Shamrock Rovers and St. Pat's and Shelbourne. And that's ultimately why they seeked new ownership. Um, Will O'Brien thought he had the contacts to help him. He probably did, but they probably weren't prepared. And the fact that they've struggled this season has probably not helped his case.
100%.
And if they'd maybe been sixth or seventh in the table, he may have been able to attract that investment. The fact that they're languishing at the very bottom of the table, um, the investors are
I
probably
think it's
holding
high
off.
risk.
Yeah, they're holding off to see what happens.
Mm,
And I think, and I've said this before, Keith, I think if Dundalk finish ninth, I think they go down anyway. If Drogheda finish ninth, I think they stay up. And it just shows you the difference and I think it's because of the signings that Drogheda made in July was they brought in goal scorers, DGT James Douglas Taylor or JDT, sorry. Um, Still didn't get it right, did I? JDT James Douglas Taylor. He scored quite a few goals, and
Yeah.
they look pretty solid. Look, I know they lost
Mm,
last time out against Pats, but they went down to 10 men at 0-0, and to be fair, they battled back. They won all, but conceded straight away. So yeah, look, it's just a mess at Dundalk, and it has been since you could nearly say since Stephen Kenny left. It's been a mess. I know they had that season under Vinnie Perth where they came close to the treble, but I think from that sort of treble
era.
season onwards, it's been pretty much on a downward trajectory for them.
Yeah, and all this stuff doesn't help the mood of the club or anything like that. Are they going to win on Thursday, though?
No, I don't think so. I think St. Pat's really good win coming off the back of the defeat against Istanbul. They got back the domestic, um, and they got and they and as I said, touched on before, it was against 10 men, but you can only beat what's in front of you, and that's what St. Pat's have done. And I think they'll go to Oriel Park and they'll win comfortably, and I think they'll win by 3 goals to 0.
Well, one interesting thing, JP, is the Pats have won one game away from Richmond this season. That was the opening day of the season in Galway, believe it or not. It's crazy to
I
think
didn't
that.
know that. I didn't know
There you
that.
go. There's something they'll want to change, obviously, and
If,
they
if
drew
they're
nil
going to get
nil
into
there.
Europe, if
Hmm?
they get into Europe, they're going to have to
Oh,
change it.
absolutely.
Why
They're
not
going to have
start
to
with
change. And by the
the
way, without getting into too much detail, they've three Dublin derbies to go, and they're all away from home. So I still think they've a lot to do. But yeah, I think they might nick it here. I don't think they'll win 3-0 personally, but I think they might nick it. I'll go for Pats to win 2-1. Don't be surprised if Dundalk gets something out of the game, but it'll be interesting. I think if they lost 3-0, I think that would really kill them morale wise. But on to Friday, and obviously we only have two games this weekend, but two big games I mentioned before. Back to that North Dublin derby, and yes, it is a North Dublin derby. Shells are playing Talca Park for donkey's years, so they're a North Dublin club. I'm not having that, JP. They originated in Ringsend, I mean, years and years ago. But anyway, this is a North Dublin derby, and they only played a couple of weeks ago, and it was 1-1. Bowes, from their point of view, are obviously the back after coming off a draw against Shells, obviously, and then beating Shamrock Rovers. Of course they did. They're Dublin derbies. They do well in all of them nearly. Um, but yeah, back to Daily Mount for this one, and a bit of fire in this one as well. There's Reynolds and Duff had a bit of a barmy pre-match actually before that game at Talca Park. No idea what it was about. Nobody seems to know what it was about, but they heard a lot of shouting, etc., etc. They didn't shake hands at the final whistle. Don't know what that's about. Might add fire to this particular fixture. It's a big game. Shelbourne, I don't think we're that convincing at Oriel Park the other day. The end of their rush, but they weren't convincing. They did get the 3 points. This is their opportunity, and we've talked so long about this game in hand. You know what I mean? They've had for so long. This game in hand will be finished, will be over and done with by Friday evening. From their point of view, if they got a win, obviously it's a fantastic result and they'd go six clear. Even a draw is decent because it does give them an added point, doesn't it? On there, he gives them the 4 points. But Bowes, there was a lot I liked about Bowes actually against Shamrock Rovers. I thought they were fortunate in many ways as well. Shamrock Rovers missed a few sitters that bizarrely were left out of the highlights for some reason. But if they bring that kind of fire that they have actually in their last two matches into this match, I think they've an opportunity to get something out of this game big time. I still think Shelbourne aren't motoring.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I think this is going to be tight. I actually don't see Bowes losing this game, believe it or not. I'm trying to say to myself, do I think they'll win it? Will they win two at home in a row? Will they beat Shelbourne? Will it be another draw? But I honestly don't see
They'll
Bohemians.
get the worst home form in the league despite that when they against Rosen.
They have. And Shells did beat them earlier on in the season at Dalymount and it flipped over and Bowes beat them at Talca. But I tell you what, Liam Smith has come in a right back. That's been a problem option for Bowes, hasn't it? The last couple of windows. And he looks unspectacular, right? But just solid. And that's what they need at right back, I think. He just looks very solid. There's not many mistakes in him. Not necessarily great going forward, but he just looks like he can defend well. From what I've seen him so far, he's given them a bit of balance there. I still think they have a problem midfield in terms of they don't have an anchor man. There's some really good footballers there. Obviously, Dawson Devoy and Tierney was outstanding the other day. I think I'm going to go for a draw, JP, in this game. I think Shelbourne and Duffel feel we need to go to Dalymount and get something out of this game.
Yeah.
Something. Even if it's a draw, we need to get something. So I can see Shells really digging in this game. Bowes need to try and play in the front foot and go with them early on. If Bowes were to score an early goal, I think the game becomes extremely interesting if Bowes scored the early goal. What can Shelbourne do on that? But yeah, I'm going to go for a draw. I'm going to go for another 1-1 draw. How are you seeing it?
Yeah, I think when you looked at the obviously after the game at Tolka a couple of weeks ago, I was watching the Derry Waterford game and then I flicked on
Mm.
Virgin Media and I listened to the aftermath of the Dublin Derby and it looked like Shelbourne hung on in that game.
Mm.
Um, didn't see it, didn't see any highlights of it, so I
A
can't
little bit,
comment on it.
JP.
But
Yeah, I would say so. I think Bowes definitely look more likely to get the winner. I would
yeah.
suggest strongly. Yeah.
Um, and Damien Duff looked a dejected man. It was like he looked like a man who his team had just relinquished advantage, which they did do to Derry. Probably didn't expect to get the advantage back so soon after,
Mm,
and that's probably why he looked like that. But the fact that they have done that, and this is now their game in hand, as you say, like they'll be looking to go there to at least get a point because that then takes the advantage away from Derry. Because
goal swing.
it's a goal difference is it's worth an extra point. Where if they can go to Dynamite and get the point, they've utilised their game in hand because they forced Derry in now to having to get two results better than Shelbourne. So
Mm,
plus as well as beating Shelbourne in the final game, they need another result somewhere else to go in their favour.
mm.
So as it currently sits, if Bows were to pick up a second win in a row, at Dalymount Park, that again would probably you would say it would hand the initiative back to Derry. But
Mm,
when you look at the fixtures that both have, they're very, very similar. And we spoke a couple of weeks ago
mm,
or a few weeks ago that what Shelbourne's Achilles heel could well be is that the amount of Dublin derbies that they're going to have. Um, and I think this is the first of them.
mm.
They have, I think they've Pats and Rover still to come as well because we've 9 games to go, so we still got near
It's a good
enough.
point, JP, as well, because I was talking to a Bowes fan the other day, and this is how it goes. Like, there were Shells fans watching this as well, but this is how it goes, and they'd be the same if the shoe was on the other foot. You know, they're kind of saying whatever happens, Shells can't win the league. So then you've got their Dublin Derby teams playing against them, maybe thinking that, and it just makes it maybe a bit more difficult for Shells to come
Mm,
up against the Bows, obviously a Pats and the Shamrock Rovers in the run in. Do you know what I
mm,
mean? That I think sometimes that can make it a little bit more difficult. Whereas Derry obviously don't have that particular scenario, let's say, where
mm.
someone's going, right, we have to stop Derry winning the league or whatever. Managers could use that as motivation against Shelbourne for their players. Like Alan Reynolds, especially with that little Barmy, as I mentioned as well, just adds a bit, doesn't it, as well? Like, you know.
Yeah, it does. Like Derry have Sligo, but it's not. You can't really compare it to
Mm,
what Shelbourne have in Dublin.
mm,
Um, so it's going to be really really difficult. It's going to be difficult for both Shelbourne and Derry from here
mm,
on in, and I think it's a case of Shelbourne haven't won the league for 18 years, Derry haven't won it for 27 years. So it's a case of both are just sort of trying to find a way to get over the line. And I spoke about this today, and I know there's a lot of criticism on the approach that Rory Higgins has taken, and I just wonder, is it a case of he's just trying to do enough to get over the line to get this title off the monkey off the back,
mm,
and maybe next year you would see a different Derry City as in terms of going forward, attacking,
mm,
etc. Is he just trying to do enough to get over the line? And I said all along, said all season that if Shelbourne were going to win the league, they were going to have to stay in front. And they've already proved me wrong on that point because they got back in front straight away. Because Derry got in front and couldn't stay in front. Um, but it was really good. Um, it was really poor from Derry down in Galway, so it was.
mm,
But that's not Shelbourne's fault. They done their business in Dundalk, um, and I think like there is going to be a couple of twists and turns before now, and the big shootout that hopefully will be the big shootout at the Brandywell. And as a Derry fan, I said this on Friday night. Although we've handed the initiative back, the key for Derry is to get them to the Brandywell in the last game of the season. With you go on the last day of the season and say you beat them in the Brandywell, you won the league, and that's ultimately after Friday night. That's what Derry will want to do. So this is a big, big game. For Derry's point of view, or it's not Derry's point of view,
well,
Shelbourne point of view, Bow's point of view.
mm,
So um, I think this will be a draw as well. I think they're really on the up after that result. against Rovers.
Hmm.
They'll want to show that it's not a one-off. They'll want to kick on. As you say, if they get the early goal in this game, um, it could mean anything. Um, and I think it'll finish 1-0.
We're going for 1-0 as well. No, it's just while you were talking there as well, it's just interesting that Derry and Shell's playing the last day of the season. Could you imagine there was something on the line there? Drogheda and Dundalk playing the last game of the season as well, by the way. Could you imagine there was something on
That's
the line there? Now,
it's
as a
looking
complete neutral to this situation, I hope to God they both those scenarios come into play.
it's looking more and more likely, isn't it? Like on
Very
both
tight.
scenarios.
Yeah, very good, JP. Thanks very much. That was brilliant. Thanks for
About
coming
it,
on
cheers,
as
thank you.
usual. Guys at home, let us know what you think in the comments. Is the title going to go to the last day of the season? Is the relegation battle going to the last day of the season? Give us a few predictions. Thank you very much.
Cheers,
Lovely.
Steve.